so sweet. Little girls double dutch on the concrete. Maybe sometimes we got it wrong, but it's alright. The more things seem to change, the more they stay the same. Ooh, don't you hesitate. Girl, put your records on. Tell me your favorite song. You go ahead, let your head down. Sapphire and faded jeans. I hope you get your dreams. Just go ahead, let your head down. You're gonna find yourself somewhere, somehow. Blue as the sky, sunburned and lonely, sipping tea in a bar by the roadside. Just relax, just relax. Don't you let those other boys fool you. Gotta love that afro hairdo. Maybe sometimes we feel afraid, but it's alright. The more you stay the same, the more they seem to change. Don't you think it's strange? Girl, put your records on. Tell me your favorite song. You go ahead, let your head down. Sapphire and faded jeans. I hope you get your dreams. Just go ahead, let your head down. You're gonna find yourself somewhere, somehow. Twas more than I could take. Pity for pity's sake. Some nights kept me awake. I thought that I was stronger. When you gonna realize that you don't even have to try any longer? Do what you want to. Girl, put your records on. Tell me your favorite song. You go ahead, let your head down. Oh, let your head down. Sapphire and faded jeans. I hope you get your dreams. Just go ahead, let your head down. Girl, put your records on. Tell me your favorite song. You go ahead, let your head down. Sapphire and faded jeans. I hope you get your dreams. Just go ahead, let your head down. Ooh, you're gonna find yourself somewhere, somehow.
We come into this world unknown, but know that we are not alone. They try to knock us down, but change is coming. It's our time now.
Hey, everybody loses it. Everybody wants to throw it all away sometimes. And hey, yeah, I know what you're going through. Don't let it get the best of you. You'll make it out alive. Oh, people like us, we gotta stick together. Keep your head up, nothing lasts forever. Here's to the damned, to the lost and forgotten. It's hard to get high when you're living on the bottom. We are all misfits living in a world on fire. Sing it for the people like us, the people like us.
Hey, this is not a funeral. It's a revolution after all. Your tears have turned
together. Keep your head up, nothing lasts forever. Here's to the damned, to the lost and forgotten. It's hard to get high when you're living on the bottom. We are all misfits living in a world on fire. Sing it for the people like us, the people like us. You just gotta turn it up loud when the flames get higher. Sing it for the people like us, the people like us, like us. We are all misfits living in a world on fire. Sing it for the people like us, the people like us. You just gotta turn it up loud when the flames get higher. Sing it for people like us, the people like us.
Well, hi, everybody. It's David Kantor here tonight with episode 5 of UUCC Zoom-in Live. We're grateful for the ongoing support of our congregation. We're glad you're with us here this evening. So, true fact, when we first started doing the show, we scheduled 5 episodes. We figured that would give us a fair shot, give the show a fair shot. If it seems to be getting some acceptance, we then keep going and avoid that dreaded network cancellation notice. And if we weren't doing so good, that notice would come. We'd say we gave it a try and it just didn't work out. So we're pleased to let you know we've had enough response from enough people so that we've actually scheduled through the end of the year with more on the horizon for early next year. So I'll make a deal with all of you. You guys keep showing up. We'll keep doing the show. How's that sound? So if you're enjoying the show, enjoying yourself, please tell your UUCC friends. The more the merrier, obviously. So tonight we were supposed to have Jenna Bradbourne here co-hosting with me. But alas, as the deal we had with our co-hosts is that, they have other things, amazingly, they have other things going on in their lives aside from doing this show. And so we told them when they agreed to be co-hosts that, well, if you can't make a show because you have too much going on, just let us know and we'll basically try to make do without you. And so Jenna, who is supposed to be with us tonight, has been getting totally blasted away by school. And so we're going to be missing her tonight, but hope to have her back here with us in a couple of weeks. So just so we're all clear here. So without Jenna, it means that tonight's working crew here are Mark Weber, Jack Ullman, who will be with us in a minute, and me. So if we had Jenna with us, the average age of the people working the show would have snuck below 90. But without her, well, I can't count that high. So there you go. So as a reminder, of course, we have the co-hosts with us because basically they help us with things like music and different perspectives. So the music we started playing this evening before we came on live, we're Holding Out for a Hero by Bonnie Tyler. That's a song from the movie Flashdance, not Flashdance, from I'm blanking on it right now. Figure it out later. Footloose, sorry.
Footloose.
Footloose. And then we had a song called Put Your Records On, which is a song that Jenna had suggested by Corinne Bailey Ray. I love the song, and I also love the artist's first name. That was the name of my sister Corinne, who's no longer with us. And then, of course, we had People Like Us, which is a song from the Doom Patrol. So we're hoping, basically, that this will give us a way, as we've said before, of being together every couple of weeks. So if you've been here with us before, thank you very much. If this is your first time with us, well, we're glad you're here, and we hope that being with us becomes part of your routine. A reminder, if you have not done so, look at the bottom of your Zoom screen and see the chat function there, and please announce yourself using the chat function. So everybody, make sure you send it to everybody and not just to the panelists, okay? Because your fellow congregants do want to know that you're here. So with that being said, as you know, the famed Jack Ullman, who's a longtime member of the old First U and now of UUCC, is the master of the punny joke. So in honor of that, we've established the Jack Ullman Comedy Moment, we'll have a joke from Jack. So here's tonight's entry. Jack, you're up. What do you got for us this evening?
Good evening, David. It's good to be back on live and tell a few of Jack's jokes. First, a little about me. I taught English at Bedford High School and counseled students as well for more than 30 years. I got my teaching training at Ohio University in the 60s. In my teaching methods class, they emphasized articulation, enunciation, and pronunciation. For practice, you had to fill your mouth with marbles and give a short speech. Of course, you would occasionally spit out a marble accidentally. When you lost all your marbles, then you could teach. But enough about me. Tonight's story comes from our good friend Jim Wickard. It seems that a Cleveland area temple was experiencing some serious divisiveness regarding its services and traditions. Half the congregation believed it was proper to stand during prayers to show respect for the holy. The other faction believed it was better to sit during prayers to show humility and quiet meditation. The arguing grew to a fever pitch as congregants threatened to quit the temple if they didn't get their way. Finally, they agreed to meet with their revered rabbi and let his wise judgment clarify the dilemma. They met and explained the crisis. Rabbi, is it proper to stand during prayers to show reverence for God, or is it better to sit in humility and meditation? What is the tradition? The rabbi turned to the warring factions, stroked his beard, and said, in this temple, arguing, that is the tradition. Well, that's it for the fourth installment of Jokes. Back to you, David.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah, that was a good joke. I like that.
I like that.
Pretty good. That's pretty
I
good.
liked it.
So before we go any further and bring out Mark, I want to say I'm going to give a special shout out to Kevin Ortner, who many of you may have heard is home with a case of COVID-19. So Kevin, we're all thinking about you. So Kevin's doing okay now. He actually was able to take a wander around the Kenston Trails the other day. So he's doing okay, but he's got some of those classic, symptoms. So it's kind of spooky. Like he's lost a sense of smell, which is kind of strange. Although if you've been around Kevin when we've been bowling, it's actually a blessing, but never mind. So Kevin, we miss you. Hope you're back with us soon and get better. So, okay, let's turn to our special guest. Tonight is Mark Weber. Mark is a former First U board member. And as an aside, he wrote the funniest board minutes I've ever seen. And he's one of our certified lay ministers. He's been involved in a wide range of congregational activities, including the reunification of the Society and First U and the lay pastoral care team, and now serves in the ministerial search task force. And I haven't even mentioned his commitment to social justice or other interests. Now, I should tell you now, before we get started, that I'm blessed to count Mark among my closest friends and one of the folks who most inspires me. And so, just so you know, as the conversation between Mark and me takes place, if it deteriorates at all, it's all my fault. Of course, Mark is our special guest. So tonight can't be his fault. His fault normally is. So everybody, please take yourselves off of mute and give a warm UUC welcome to Mark Weber. Hey, Mark, you make it out here?
I'm here. Thank you very much. It's really an honor to be here. And I agree with you. Best wishes go to Kevin, and we hope that he recovers very soon.
So, Mark, since we're just talking about Kevin and his bout with COVID, how are you doing? How are you dealing with COVID? You going out to the movies, going out to restaurants, going to lots of big gatherings? What are you doing?
Well, I don't think I'm being very careful because I attend all of these Trump rallies. And of course, they're super spreader events. So with me, it's simply day to day.
So what are you not doing? What are you missing the most?
Going to the movies. I know you can watch movies on TV, but going to the theater and watching the movies is something that I really enjoy. The other thing, of course, that I enjoy is the fact that our congregation is kind of, we're all remote from each other and we don't see each other except via Zoom most of the time. So I miss the members and friends at UUCC.
That was a very politically correct thing to say. That's nicely done. So now, Mark, we're going to take you back to the beginning. Let's go back
Of time.
prior centuries and talk about you. So where were you born? What was your family situation? What do you remember most about growing up? I know we're going back like thousands of years, but never mind. You do the best you can.
Well, so I was born in a small town in Wisconsin, Lancaster, in the year 1946. So I was the first wave of boomers. My father was a merchant, sadly a high school dropout, and my mom was a home ec teacher who I think had completed 2 years of college. And I grew up in a small little haberdashery shoe store that my father ran in this small town. And the one thing that strikes me as that I will always remember is when I was in 8th grade and Ashley Moorhead, the son of a Episcopal minister, ratted me out. And so when the teacher left the room, I took Ashley and dropped him out of the second-story window. And I remember that especially, and but perhaps enough said.
So Mark, was that your fondest memory of growing up, dropping Ashley out the window?
It was my my fondest moment because you know, kids are supposed to not snitch on one another.
So for those of you who are listening to this show, we should be thankful that currently we are socially distanced from Mark Weber. I did not know he had this propensity for violence, so I apologize to all of you. So Mark, when you were growing up, was there religion in your family? What did you guys do about religion? Was there one? If so, what was it? And what kind of practices did you guys?
No practices much. Observation around, a little observation around the holidays, but not really much at all, really.
What religion were you?
Then I wasn't really any religion. My mother has a Jewish background, but I wasn't really any religion growing up. There weren't any institutions to support it.
Mm. So as you grew up, where'd you end up going to college? What'd you major in? How'd all that work out?
Wisconsin, American history. And I was in, I think, probably 1964 to 68 was really the sort of focus point of the campus demonstrations of the 60s. I went to school in Wisconsin, so I experienced some of that.
So is this the same Wisconsin that currently has those mega COVID outbreaks that, so I hear you've been visiting Wisconsin a lot after the Trump rallies. So are you the super spreader for Wisconsin?
I'm afraid, David, you've blown my cover. I am.
So if you were born and raised in Wisconsin, you went to school in Wisconsin, how did you land in Cleveland? How'd you end up getting here?
Oh, well, I was working in Evansville, Indiana as a academic librarian, and I applied to go to graduate school at Case Western Reserve. And so I came to Case to go to graduate school. That's how I got here.
Wait a second. So you majored in American history, but you were working in Evansville, Indiana as a librarian. So can you connect a couple of those dots for us?
Yes, sorry. I went to library school at Wisconsin after, because there were really very few jobs available after college. The market for teachers was glutted. So I went to library school and became a librarian, and was a children's librarian in Oak Park, Illinois for a few years, and then eventually went to the University of Evansville.
Wait a second. Okay, so this is unrehearsed, gang. I did not know this ahead of time, so you know that, for those of you watching, so we do go over some questions with the guests before they get here, but I don't know what the answers are going to be. Are you telling me you were a librarian in Oak Park, Illinois?
I was.
When was this?
I started in 1970, and I believe I was there for 5 years, and I left in 1975.
So in one of those observations of, isn't this a very small world? I lived in Oak Park, Illinois, and I moved there in 1976. So I'm assuming to the community, just as they felt relieved that you left, they went, oh crap, here comes Kantor. So there you go. So now I understand why you never bought me that cup of coffee that you promised me. We were at the same time. Got it.
I guess I should mention that while I was a children's librarian, I was introduced to the world of teacher union politics and was union president, sadly, at the time of the first teachers' strike in the school's 125-year history. So when I left, they were glad to see me go, and they viewed your coming as a plus.
So you came to Cleveland. You came to Cleveland to go to Case, and you've been here ever since. Well, let me ask a question. So you've been here ever since, is that right?
Well, I took a sabbatical for a few years and worked at the University of Cincinnati from I don't remember, 1988 to 1991.
Got it. Wait a second, 88 to 91?
Mm-hmm.
So, Mark, do you know that I lived in Cincinnati from 86 to 88?
You're the guy they told me about.
Yes, I'm exactly the guy they told you about.
Yeah. And they said to me, have you come to replace him?
Boy, so I guess the third time, this is totally unrehearsed, gang. I guess the third time was the charm. Isn't that wild? Isn't that wild how that works out sometimes? So, Mark, so if you grew up with no religion in your house, how did you land with UU? And how'd you land? How'd you land as a Unitarian? Where did all that come from?
Well, it's a halfway station in a way. Many often a common UU combo is one spouse is Jewish and the other is Catholic, and the compromise is often Unitarian Universalism.
I'm totally unfamiliar with that dynamic, given that I'm married to Mary Ellen McNulty.
Well, I brought it up in order to explain it to you.
So I'm assuming this means that you became a Unitarian after you let the lovely Felisa Anthony. Is that accurate?
That's true.
So, okay, so you might as well give us a backstory about that right now, since it came up right now. How did you guys meet? Where did you meet? Who asked who out the first time? Tell me about all that.
Well, the only thing I would say is that in 1986 and 1987, I was involved in protesting the U.S.-sponsored war in El Salvador and Nicaragua. This would have been the early 80s, 84, 85. And I needed a leaflet translated into Spanish. And someone said to me, well, Felisa Anthony, she teaches Spanish at Heights. Why don't you ask her? And then the rest is history.
So you met her, and she actually agreed to go out with you?
Yeah, I know, it's pretty amazing. But perhaps it was a weak moment, but she agreed.
You know, she may have had one of those moments of one of those emotional lapses, and clearly you've reinforced that over the years. So congratulations on that.
I've done my best, David.
You clearly married above your weight class, man.
I did.
So So how did you actually, so did you guys seek out a UU church? Is that how that worked out? I'm curious about how this actually works. So you guys got married and you guys say, okay, we're married, we need a church or synagogue or a mosque? I mean, how did this come to pass?
Well, I think it was viewed as a sort of intellectual, or not intellectual, spiritual compromise.
So was Felissa raised unchurched as well, or was she raised in some other religion? What's the deal?
She was Catholic, and she grew up in El Paso, and she grew up Catholic and went to a Catholic high school in El Paso.
So how did you end up finding, so I met you at First Unitarian. Is that the first Unitarian church you went to, or did you go somewhere else first?
When I lived in Cincinnati, I went a few times to St. John's Unitarian Church in Cincinnati, near the University of Cincinnati. That's kind of a strange name. Usually I associate St. John's with either Lutheran churches or Catholic churches, but this was a Unitarian church. And quite a few people from the university, faculty and staff, were members there.
Interesting. So how'd you find First U?
Well, I think we just walked in the door.
So Mark, you're a certified lay minister. What prompted you to go down that path? How difficult was it to, well, it can't be that difficult if you're one, never mind. How did you become one? What prompted that thought process?
Well, David, let me remind you, first of all, that while I have recently become a certified lay minister, I mean, I've always been certifiable. Well, I'm also a, what do you call it, madrik, which is a ceremonialist with the Jewish secular community, and have certification through a body that serves secular Judaism. And I felt maybe I could play a more constructive role after the havoc I wreaked on the board when you were there, by becoming more of a sort of helper to the minister, a lay minister, and sort of switch roles, and tried to do something constructive for once.
How's that worked out for you?
Well, most people are amazed to see me in this new light and to be a conciliator rather than a partisan. So I don't really know. You'll have to ask the audience how they view it, but I'm enjoying it.
So when you're going to be in the pulpit on a Sunday, where do the ideas come from? Where do your ideas for sermons come from?
Well, since many of my sermons have sort of justice themes, I try to stay tuned in to that, to the world of social justice issues, so that I can use them when appropriate in sermons. And of course, on several sermons, I've made comments about or references to Colombia, which is an important part of the work that I do.
So Mark, now we're going to get to the delicate part of our conversation here. So you talk a lot about your former barber. What's his name? Nibs, Buns, Nubs? Nubs.
Blessed memory.
So I think it's time that you own up to the truth about Nubs, Mark. You know, as you know, we went all around town here, and nobody, not even other barbers, had ever seen or heard of him. So Mark, is Nubs real?
He is.
So where is Nubs?
Where?
Where?
Well, right now he lives in my head, but in real life, he was a barber in the little town that I grew up in until his death in 1968.
So do you think that might be a clue as to why I couldn't find him when I roamed around town here in Cleveland?
You know, David, I think you're onto something.
So was Nubs really somebody who actually was somebody who spouted all sorts of wisdom, what have you, when you'd be with him? Or is that just a vehicle that you used for basically having a good way of making your points and telling your stories?
Well, I think you could say that Nubs, who we learned upon his death, was actually a Holocaust Jew who was born around 1900, my father thought, and died in 1968, came to Lancaster after the war, maybe 1948 or so. And when I was going there, especially when I was in junior high and high school, he gave me a different way of thinking because he didn't share the common small town view of the world. And so I learned from him.
You know, we're oftentimes blessed that way, right? We just wander around through this world and we come across people that we least expect them, who end up sharing all sorts of good thoughts and perspectives with us. So, yeah. So Mark, so you've been involved with a bunch of other stuff we alluded to before, both with First U and now with the UUCC. Board leadership roles, being involved with the unification discussions, and now ministerial search. So I guess I'm curious as to what motivates you to be involved in all this kind of stuff. Why do you do all this?
I just feel that I should do my part. We're a community, and the community works best when everyone kind of pitches in and does their part. And so that's what I try to do within the limits of my abilities. So I guess it's just a matter of wanting to help out. And yeah.
So let's talk about your justice efforts for just a minute. Both, so we know you've been involved in a bunch of stuff, both here at home and internationally, including Mississippi. So let's hear about some of your international journeys and some of what the stuff you've been exploring and been exposed to. How about you start with Mississippi? So as I recall, you were in Mississippi in like 1964. You were a youngin' then. How did that come to pass, and what motivated it? What popped out?
You know, I wish I could say that I did that out of altruism, but as a kind of white bread college student from a small town, a minister from one of the local churches approached a bunch of students and talked about what was going on in Mississippi, and asked if any of us were interested. And a couple of us raised our hands, and it went from there. Sadly, I must confess, I lied about my age because I really wasn't old enough to go. But I'm glad I went. And it really changed, I think at that, I was pretty naive and impressionable, and had seen very, very few people of color. So it really opened my eyes.
Life-changing for you, game changer?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, because it then led to my involvement in other issues while I was a student.
So you've been other places as well, right? So you've been to South America multiple times, Central America, South America. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, I became interested in Colombia after I heard a talk sponsored by Witness for Peace of a speaker who was on tour. And she came to speak in Oberlin, and I drove to hear her and learned really for the first time about what was going on in Colombia. And then I began to read quite a bit about Colombia, and then began to go on human rights delegations myself. I hope to go next year, and this would be the 9th time. And almost all of the visits, except one, go to Southwest Colombia, which is the area of greatest conflict between the military and the guerrillas and the narco traffickers. So in working with the people in Colombia, who do so much with so little, I've come to admire them and also to feel a little guilt, because I feel that at the end of a stay, 2 weeks or whatever it is, I get to go back to the light at the end of the tunnel. For them, there is no light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. So some would argue that there would be a parallel for that, in that as a white person in the United States, we get to choose our involvement in racial justice issues. But for somebody of color, you've got no choice. That's every day for you.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
If I get stopped by a cop and a Black person gets stopped by a cop, it's a totally different experience.
So you made at least, so I understand you've taken a trip or two to the Middle East as well. Talk to us about that just for a minute or two, the time we've got remaining for us right now.
2 trips. The most recent one was in 2017 with Eyewitness Palestine, a human rights NGO that works very closely with the Defense of Children International, which has offices in Palestine. And we went there primarily to see the situation of the occupied West Bank. We were unable to get into Gaza, but we were on the West Bank and traveled throughout the whole area, really, from the north, near the Sea of Galilee, to the south, to Hebron, and places in between.
What'd you see?
Well, of course, I'm seeing it from the Palestinian perspective, I admit that, but it's also become my perspective. And that is that Israel is being developed and Palestine is being allowed really to wither away. And plus, the other thing I saw, of course, was the regular violence by the IDF, the occupation forces, the Israeli army, against Palestinians. And these are not guerrillas, these are ordinary people. The other thing I saw was the incredible expansion of apartment buildings into really Palestinian territory. And these would be apartment buildings built for Israelis who want to move into this area, because I believe the government offers incentives if you will move from Israel proper into these areas that are occupied.
So let's move on to our last couple of questions. This is what I'm curious about. So you're a certified lay minister for UU, but you mentioned before that you're involved, I'm going back to something from before. You said you're involved with the Jewish Secular Society. Talk to me how all that fits together for you.
A Jewish secular community, which actually is a tenant of the of our congregation. So if you decide as a Jew that religious rituals and a religious worldview are not for you, then you become, perhaps, you either become completely non-observant and just sort of assimilate, or you become a secular Jew and try to translate some of the religious rituals into secular, more universalist rituals. And it's from that perspective that I saw Unitarian Universalism, especially the humanist portion of Unitarian Universalism, as being very appealing.
So last question for you, Mark, before we go to break, and that is our standard last question, and that is, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
To stop COVID-19.
Ooh, there's a serious power there. So again, we've had people say the superpowers would be things like teleportation, ability to fly, be like Aquaman and be able to be in the water, and be somebody who could paralyze people for short periods of time, just make them understand. Now we've got stop COVID-19. So I'm going to ask you all again, after tonight's show, I'll eventually get an email out to you all thanking you for being here. I'm going to ask you that question about what would be your superpower. Love to hear from you about that. Okay, we're going to take a brief break now so we can get your questions for Mark organized. So if you have a question to ask, please use the question and answer button at the bottom of your Zoom screen and ask it. Do not use the chat button. We're not looking at that. And we'll get things organized for you to ask your questions to Mark when we return. But first, our mid-show break with the song Hey Brother by Avicii. Be back with you in like 4 minutes.
Hey, brother, there's an endless road to rediscover. Hey, sister, know the water's sweet, but blood is thicker. Oh, if the sky comes falling down for you, there's nothing in this world I wouldn't do. Hey, brother, do you still believe in one another? Hey, sister, do you still believe in love? I wonder. Oh, if the sky comes falling down for you, there's nothing in this world I wouldn't
And we're back. That was Hey Brother by Avicii, Avicii. I have never heard of this dude before in my life. It's a song that Mark suggested we play this evening, and we try to accommodate our guests and give them a song if they want one on the show. And so there we were. Hope you enjoyed it. So now we're going to take questions from our audience. We'll take you in the order in which your questions came up. And so I'll be calling on you, and you can unmute yourself at that point and ask your question to Mark.
Hey, David.
Yeah, Mark.
Can you start my video? It says I'm blocked by the host.
You're blocked by the, well, I can't blame Liz for having done that. So I can't put you on video. Liz is gonna have to do that. Madam Producer, can we get Mark on?
I just
Says he's
asked him to start his video.
Thank
There
you.
he is. Thank you. So Mark, so now everybody can see a smiling face now. So our first question is from Mary Ellen McNulty. Mary Ellen, what's your question for Mark?
Hi. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Mary Ellen.
So what were you actually doing when you were in Colombia?
Well, we interview victims of state-sponsored violence. Almost all of the victims, not entirely all, but most all are women, because their sons or brothers or husbands or boyfriends have been killed or are in prison. And so we interview victims of state-sponsored violence and then make presentations back in the United States. There's virtually nothing we can do in Colombia. And we also talk to social leaders from Afro-Colombians, in other words, Colombians of African descent, LGBTQ folks, small farmers, and workers about the oppression that they suffer, caused largely by paramilitary units paid by either large companies like Coca-Cola or by the government itself.
Okay, thanks.
Lori Albright, you're up with Mark Weber. You got a question for Mark?
Oh, I had like a bunch of questions. So I'll go on the theme that Mary Ellen started with, which is, so Mark, clearly your heart goes out to the people of Colombia and the Palestinians. Are there similar reasons? Are they very different situations in your experience? How would you, talk about that?
Well,
same, different, compare, contrast.
I think with the militarization of the countryside in Colombia, done, of course, with American aid, there is a similarity between the relationship between the Colombian people and the Colombian government, and the relationship between the government of Israel in Jerusalem and the Palestinian people. Many of the same human rights issues are there. I think I know more, not that I know a lot, but I know a little more about Colombia because I've been there so many more times. It's possible that if you are active in the Palestinian solidarity work here, you will be placed on a blacklist, so you really can't go to Israel. And that currently is my situation. So I have to focus more on work in Colombia than Israel, Palestine.
Claire Brignolletti, you're up next. What's your question for Mark?
Oh, okay. First of all, he hasn't mentioned their wonderful daughter, Alexa, Allie, and also the places you've traveled with our Friendship Force group.
Oh, well, my daughter, Allie, is 29. And I'm proud to say that I've lived long enough so that I am now an embarrassment to my daughter, which is a milestone. She works as a corporate recruiter. I'm not sure what that says. The daughter of a socialist is now a corporate recruiter, but whatever. With Friendship Force, which is a very, very interesting group of people committed to traveling and traveling in a special way. I've been to Egypt and Jordan and New Zealand and, oh, one other one. I can't remember, but we've been those two places. And since Friendship Force is international, we are fortunate enough to be able to stay with members of Friendship Force clubs in other countries. The most memorable really were our hosts in New Zealand, where there are quite a few Friendship Force groups. Thanks, Claire, because if you hadn't brought it up, I wouldn't have remembered to say this. So thank you.
And you've hosted a number of people too.
Hosted people from Russia and from Japan and from
United States.
Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So did you host Borat? Was he one of your guests?
No, when he found out that he'd be staying at my house, he canceled.
So maybe you could have gotten a half-eaten monkey there with you as well. For those of you who don't know, there's a new Borat movie out, and it just came out the other day, and Mary Ellen and I watched it over the weekend. And there's a piece in the movie about a dead monkey, but never mind. So Gene Martin, you're up with Mark. Maybe Gene Martin doesn't want to talk to Mark. So Mark, Gene asked if we could have a walk-on from your lovely wife.
I'm going to say that anybody interested in Friendship Force, please join. It's fun. Let's hope we can travel again sometime soon, but everybody's welcome.
Thanks, Felicia. How you doing? Thanks for, boy, that we actually got a walk-on. How about that, huh? So you know what that reminds me of? This reminds me of like the first concert I ever went to. Of course, Mark, I'm much younger than you. So my first concert wasn't on the Guy Lombardo show. My first concert was James Taylor. And at the time, he was going out with Joni Mitchell. And this is a killer concert. I may have mentioned this before. The first act for this concert was Carole King. And Joni Mitchell was there. And the crowd, and we actually saw her sneaking out looks at him from behind the curtain on the side. And the crowd started going nuts, saying Joni, Joni. So she actually had to come out and actually say hi. She did not sing a song, but she came out and said hi. So there you go. So Felice just reminded me of that right now. So Lori, we're going to give you one more question from Mark. Give me one more question from Mark, Lori.
So rumor has it you're in the process of acquiring a pooch, a puppy. Tell us about that. And the big question is, will Monty be able to come and visit?
Yes to the second question. Monty is always welcome. And when Monty comes, I always wear black so that the hair that sheds will be visible to all.
Yeah, good choice. Good choice.
And the
Monty, everybody.
We are in the market for a dog, and we have one picked out. And I think Labradoodle, and she's currently with her mother because she's a little puppy, and so maybe we'll get her sometime after the election. If the election, however, goes a certain way, no dog alive will be able to console me.
So Mark, help me out on this. So how big does I'm not good at defining dogs. So Labradoodle, a big dog, little dog? How big will this dog get?
40 to 50 pounds.
So that would be not quite a lap dog then, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I don't No, a lap dog maybe for Shrek, but not for me.
Nancy King Smith, you have a question for Mark. Feel free.
Okay, well, I do hope that your new pooch can just enjoy being a dog and not have to be solely a consoler. But let's assume that Biden-Harris do win as a self-described socialist. How do you see the future of socialism in America?
Well, it won't come through Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I say that, but I have two Biden signs in my yard. So I'm supporting Biden, have already voted for him. Well, I think the pandemic is a good indication of why sort of free market piecemeal approaches to things don't work. We need really Medicare for all and a national response, coordinated national response to pandemics, and this would be one thing. And the critical importance of Medicare for all, universal health coverage for everyone, not provided through their employer, because employers can drop health coverage whenever they want to, but it's provided as government health insurance so that you will always have it. And so I think that's the most important thing that we need to work on. The other thing would be the Green New Deal, to address emissions and to do something to reverse the decline of the quality of our climate, really. So I think climate change through justice through the Green New Deal and Medicare for all to help with the pandemic and to help people who are sick and elderly are the two most important things that we can do. They would be social democratic reforms, but I want something that is doable and not something that's absolutely perfect.
Yeah, the idea of letting the perfect be the enemy of the good is a foolish way of thinking about things. Now, I just make the observation that J.B. Silvers, who speaks at our one of our forums typically every year or two, who is a professor at Case and is an expert in healthcare and healthcare economics, talks about the whole issue about how we get our health insurance. And JB, trust me, is not a socialist, but he would agree with you, Mark, that basically the idea that, oh my gosh, we all have to get our health insurance through our employer. He would observe, like I would, that that's not the greatest way of getting this stuff done, and that getting it done other ways, like having a Medicare for all option, is a good idea, not a bad idea. Mary Ellen McNulty, you get a question, one more question with Mark. What do you want to ask him?
Okay, Mark, you know, you talked about getting a new dog and having Monty come visit. So I'm wondering if Manny and Sachi can come back so they can go potty in your house again, because they don't understand about going outside, apparently, when they're with you.
This show is going to the dogs. I'm sorry, buddy. Mark, you have to answer the question. It got asked.
Sorry, Mark.
Oh, I'm looking forward to both of your dogs visiting. And I have left over some bleach, the stuff I didn't drink. And that could be used to clean up the floor. So I'm looking.
They don't get it. They're supposed to just go out in the backyard. This walking thing doesn't work for them.
Yeah, I found that out.
So backstory for all of you.
I apologize.
Mark babysat for our dogs one time, and there were multiple accidents because Mark and the dogs couldn't quite reach agreement on how they were supposed to eliminate their waste. We'll stop right there on that one.
Sorry, Mark.
We have time for one last question. Allison Bash, you get the last question tonight. What's your question for Mark?
Hi, Mark. I wanted to ask you, what was the first issue that motivated you to become involved in political or social causes?
Two. One were Southern voting rights in Mississippi, for example. That would be one when I was And the other would be, for my generation, the Vietnam War.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I read about that in the history books, Mark. Yeah.
You know what, Mark, I remember being in 8th grade, and our social studies teacher asked us a lot about things with how did we feel about like the different issues that were related to the Vietnam War. So I feel like I knew a little bit more about it than the typical 7th grader.
Well, good, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Mark, just think about that, Mark. So you, so Allison was in 8th grade, and you had finished up working for a few years, or in school at Case, working on your master's or PhD or something. Just think about that for a minute here. So,
thank you for reminding me of that, David.
You're welcome. So, thanks for your questions, everybody. Mark, thanks for all your answers here. So, gang, each episode right around now, we read your emails and text with your comments, questions, suggestions, and stories. If you have something to share, please send it to zoomin@uucleveland.org. That's zoomin@uucleveland.org. We really, really like getting the stuff that you sent us, and we read all the good stuff on air here. And of course, we are not above a little bribery to encourage you to share your thoughts. So when we get good stuff here, the winner receives their very own UUCC Zoom-in Live mug. Mark, you have your mug there, right? You want to show it to the audience?
I do. And I believe designed by Liz Kantor.
That is an accurate observation to make. Of course, the liquid in the mug is not included. We have a couple of things interesting to share with you from our last show. Jack Ullman wrote, I very much enjoyed the musical ability of the guests. I look forward to meeting her when we return to Real Church. Jack's referring to Melissa Vandergriff, of course, who was our last show guest. She's the one who co-founded and sings soprano in the Cleveland Chamber Choir, and she does have a voice. And I have to observe, of course, all the stuff she does within our congregation has been amazing. And on the side, she basically runs a chamber choir. Pretty impressive. So we have a note here from Mike Miller. Hi, Dave and Zoomies. So, gang, if you attend the show, you are now a Zoomie. I hadn't thought about what we all were. I guess you're Zoomies. Mike writes, I was interested to hear Melissa talk about her 100-year-old Cleveland Heights house. Our Cleveland Heights house was built in 1912 and has a lot of character. It is rock solid, and we've never been able to figure out what a few of the light switches do. That's funny. Shortly after we moved in, we went to the county archives where they have old tax records, many of which include photos of properties from the 1950s. And they have the original plat maps with handwritten names and dates of property owners. Mark, you might be there somewhere. I'm a map geek, so that was fun for me. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for sharing that story with us. And Mike, someday soon, you'll come home and find that the mug elf has visited your home and left a UUCC Zoom-in Love for you, mug for you. Thanks so much for being with us. So we're running out of show, gang. So Mark, thank you so much for being here tonight, for setting us all straight about Nubs and inspiring us with your tales about justice, what have you, and all your travels. Thank you so much. Our next show, everybody, will be November 9, and our special guest will be, ta-da, your favorite and mine, Erica Brown,
good
UUCC board member and community political activist.
Hello there.
And hopefully, Jenna Bradburn will be returning for us next time to help keep me.
Yay, Erica! Yay, Erica!
Woo! So, gang, let's give a major league round of applause to Liz Kantor, our new co-producer who produced tonight's show. Thank you, Liz. Yes, that's the same Liz Kantor, who is the daughter of David Kantor and Mary Ellen McNulty. As I say each show, my co-host and I do the easy stuff. Liz has to make sure it all happens. So thank you so much, Liz.
Well, look, I don't have a
now,
UUCC Zoom-in Live mug.
Thank you for the commentary, Liz. We're wrapping up now. If you'd like to catch up with your fellow congregants, there's a link in the chat function, I hope, to a UUCC Zoom room. No host, no guests, just a chance to chat with your fellow UUs. Look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks for the next edition of UUCC Zoom-in Live. Say goodnight, Mark.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Good night. Love you all.
Thank you.
Love you too.
Thank you.